Well, hello and welcome. Despite that we are relatively lucky here in Australia with regards to the stats and the number of COVID-19 cases, and also now that we are slowly emerging out of lockdown, back into really a new sense of normal. One thing is for sure is that the importance of our children's immunity and their health has never been so important. So today we're here to speak about the subject and how we can actually make healthy eating creative and fun for preschoolers with our special guest, Natasha Merckel, a Guardian Childcare and Education Chef. Now, Natasha is going to share Guardian Childcare's tips on how you can be creative in the kitchen and make nutritious, immune-boosting meals for your children, especially for those fussy eaters. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today, Natasha. How are you?
Well, thank you so much for having us, Rachel. Really appreciate that.
Oh, no, and we're really honoured for your time. We know you're a very busy lady as well. And you're in a new centre too, I can see. There's a new centre for Guardian.
It is. It's a fabulous new one opening pretty soon. And, as you can see behind me, are beautiful theatre-style kitchens with beautiful documentation, just ready to invite and to welcome little ones.
Oh, do you have that new smell, like with the paint and that sort of stuff on the walls too?
It's wonderful.
Very clean as well when you're walking into a new service.
Always.
Now, getting children to eat healthy and nutritious meals is a skill in itself, as any parent would know, but doing it for a living takes it all to a brand new level. So tell us, in your expertise, and it's really important, I think, for parents to understand, what does an education chef or one of Australia's largest early education and care providers actually do? Because, so many parents may take it for granted that they drop their children off and they are fed beautiful, nutritious meals and they pick them up and they're grateful for it. But what do you actually do in your role?
Right. So in our role, we look. I feel like I'm the luckiest person in the centre because I get to spend time with the children. I get to communicate with them. I get to communicate with their families. Most importantly, I love to influence their palates and just help them to establish good food habits that they can take into adulthood. So that's a real privilege to be able to do that for our little ones and for their families, to help support them in their children's health and well-being. We plan menus, seasonal menus. We look after, helping our children develop their palates and develop their food curiosities and teach them life skills like spreading butter on toast, with all those little things that's going to make a difference to their life. So whether it's a life skill, healthy food habits, communication skills, and basically a love for food and for cooking as well. It's amazing to create the wonder of learning with food.
Oh, how wonderful. Oh,
so,
well, in your role, has there been, I guess, a lot of trial and error with planning food for young children, and given that, in developing their palates, as you mentioned earlier, and what have you learnt most, I guess, in your career to date, through that whole sort of trial and error period of getting them to try new flavours and everything else?
Well, I found out, and I've really learned that you don't take anything personally. Our children are so honest in their feedback, and that's what helps us to develop even better menus. We're not, with my family, 3 children, there's always going to be something that doesn't quite sit well with one of them. But if we think about it, with children, sometimes it's color, sometimes it's texture, sometimes it's flavor. And so if we look at taking one dish and perhaps someone says, oh, that's a new introduction of a new, dish, didn't go down that well with the children. Some of them were a little bit tentative. But instead of taking it completely off the menu, because we know what's in it, we know there's cultural diversity within that meal, so it makes everyone feel included. We know that there's nutrition, maximize nutrition in it. We know that there's different textures. So what we do is we have a look at it, stand back and say, what didn't work? Was it the texture? What was the texture? Can I, if I had a side of carrot salad, raw grated carrot salad with that, was it the way the carrots was prepared? Should I have made it into a puree? Should I have steamed the carrots instead? So just changing perhaps sometimes one element of a dish
Can be all the
will
difference.
make it quite successful. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
don't take it off. Experiment and keep trying and recognize that there's something there. If it doesn't work, there are certainly things that just don't work. We perhaps have missed the demographic for that dish. But what we do is we first try and see and keep offering and just tweaking the dish a little bit, because eventually you find that right formula.
That's really good advice, in the sense that don't think just because you've maybe steamed the broccoli and you've given it to your children that they don't like broccoli altogether. Maybe do something different with it to change
Absolutely.
the texture of it, and try all the different ways that you can serve that particular vegetable or that food to ensure that they are getting the nutrition out of it. That's a really great tip. Thank you for that. That's great.
You're welcome. And one thing, actually, a little story comes to mind with one of our children at centres a couple of years ago now. She came up to me and she said, I really love carrots. And the mum went, no, you don't. And she goes, yes, but I like them raw. I don't like them cooked. And that was quite a revelation to her mum.
Yeah,
she goes, I've stopped offering it because you don't eat it, but it was the way she was preparing it.
Yep.
Whereas, we do offer the children raw carrot sticks, and there's those sorts of things as well for perhaps morning and afternoon teas with some beautiful hummus or something. And that's where she learned to try the different texture. So it's just sometimes texture, colour, and as you say, complementing different flavours with it as well can also help. So they might find something quite overwhelming. The taste is just overwhelming. So if you add something to it, it might just take that coarseness away. So if you're looking at, for example, if you puree apples and you've used a Granny Smith apple, which is really tart, if you complemented that with dates, you get your nutrition of your apple and get the natural sweetness of the date. So there's just little ways of doing things. Yeah.
Oh, see, that's why they pay you the big bucks. Fantastic. Now, given that
Come and be a child centre cook. Come on, be a child centre cook.
Well, you definitely come with the goods today with the information. So now, given that Australia really has a very high multicultural demographic, I'd love to know from your perspective, has it been hard, and is it hard in general to provide food for children from so many different cultural backgrounds?
The great thing about that, it offers us opportunity. So again, we come back to communicating with our families and reaching out to them and say, what does your family do? How do they do it? And so when we're developing our menus, we have a little something that's familiar to children, but also, their friend comes from a different culture, so we get to experience their culture as well. So we look at how we can take a family recipe and perhaps make it available to everyone in the centre. If it's suitable, we may just change the nutrition levels a little bit and add a bit more veggies to it. But it's very important to keep the communication with our parents. So we invite our families to say, we invite them at certain times of the year when we're looking at our menus and creating our menus, to say, what would you like to see? How can we incorporate your culture or your religious preferences and those sorts of things? Or lifestyle preferences. It's not just when we think about alternative menus, it's not just allergy requirements or food intolerances. There's lifestyle, there's religious, there's cultural preferences, and so that's a very important message of inclusion for us here at Guardian.
Yes, definitely. And with that, I guess with a higher awareness of childhood allergies in your time, and definitely over the last sort of 10 years or so, have you really seen a greater amount of pressures on your role with regards to, I guess, ensuring that the food is actually, safe for all children as well?
Absolutely. We definitely have seen an increase, but we also have to develop our skills in how we handle this. What is our allergy management policies within our centres? And look, we have guidelines in certain states. We work to a food safety program for children under the age of 5, and there certainly are aspects there for which is governed by the health department. There are aspects there of allergy management where we have to set out a process, but then also in our policies as a company, what is our best practice as well, and to ensure the safety of each child. So that would be the first thing. The other thing is that we read labels really, 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 really well. And, to see what is in it. Soy pops up as a preservative in so many aspects. There might be a child that has an allergy to it or an intolerance to it. And also then, of course, again, coming back, communication with families, so paramount. What can your child have? What can they not have? Is it medically diagnosed? So just talk to us about brands that work for you, that you've tried, that you think that has been well and safe for the child. We always try and accommodate with either having alternate products or even just brands that you are happy with at home. If we can accommodate that, we definitely do.
And so what meals do you cook that, I guess, tick all the boxes, ensuring the safety and well-being of all children? Do you have some, they would all have to ensure that they are, of course, but what are your sort of the ones that you can share today?
My favourite one is it's a coconut curry, but it's a vegetable curry. It is delicious. It's delicious.
Sounds delicious.
So it's a vegetable curry, and so therefore our vegetarian children and families are accommodated in that. We get our nutrition from all our fresh veggies that we pack into it. We get our protein perhaps from our chickpeas that we're going to be using, or lentils, or in some kind of legume. Did you know? This is a handy little hint that I found.
Another one.
Another one, because how there's always nut allergies on the rise, but so how do we substitute that flavor or even the texture? So what I tend to use, I tend to roast off my chickpeas and then pulse it so that it's a mush. And when you add your coconut cream to it and your whatever curry spices you're going to create, it actually gives quite the sensation of a satay sauce.
Oh, very nice.
The nuts. So, a coconut curry, and when we're serving our babies, of course, we have to do some things that are age appropriate. So chickpeas might be a choking hazard for our little ones. So when we're preparing our food for our babies, children under 1 year mostly of age, pulsing up those chickpeas and creating that texture for them, but not sacrificing the flavor profile and helping their palates there to develop is key for us as well. So we've got a beautiful baby program. It's called Nourish and Nurture. It's a bespoke baby eating and feeding program. And it looks at children under the age of 1, and their needs are changing all the time, and what nutrients they might need, like iron. So we're working towards that, and the program has proven to be quite rather successful with the children, the educators, and the families alike.
That's good. Well, getting back to veggies for a second, what are your tips and tricks to help parents get their kids to eat their veggies and I guess more of the good stuff when they get home?
Yeah, because they do it for us.
Yes, that's the thing. Yeah,
and engage in that social environment with their friends, and it's a non-issue. I like to involve the children with preparing, so get them in to help me prepare. Whether they're shining up a capsicum, that's their contribution, if that's their skill level. Whether they helping me to de-seed a capsicum, teach them chopping skills. Remember, we talked about those life skills that we may introduce to them. So we teach them how to chop safely, and we have child-safe knives and those everything. So getting them involved really gets them to want to try the end result. That would be one of the things. So it could be something small, it could be something really big. Getting them to go to the supermarket and select, at your local market, select veggies that they think they would like to try.
Oh, how lovely.
So the key is to get them involved and to get them choosing what they would like to eat. Get them involved, get their input, and get their opinion.
I love that. So getting them involved so they have some sense of ownership with it as well. So
correct.
Yes, that's great. And what about children on the spectrum who can be known to be a little bit more of a fussy eater? And do you have any tips, I guess, for parents in that, from that perspective, ensuring that they are sort of getting their veggies and all the good stuff?
Yeah, see, that's a bit of a tricky one. So we do speak to the families and see what worked for them in the past and how that works.
Yeah.
And this is where trial and error comes in, because with when it comes to textural difficulties or sensory difficulties, it is quite challenging. But what we do is we keep offering, we change the texture, we ask them what they like to eat. And sometimes because you're offering it, we're just saying, just give it a little bit of a smell, or, put it up to your lips. It's not that bad. Sometimes they're willing to put it in between their teeth and accidentally have a bite of it and go, oh, this is not so bad after all. But working with their educators who know them well, working with their families, of course, who is their absolute champion and know their child really well, we then create menus for them. So how can we work to incorporate and include your child into our menus? And again, that comes down to communication with children. We're happy to do that, to do the extra if we know how to make them feel included.
Yes.
And getting all the nutrients. That is, we take our cues from families, really. And when we've established that relationship with the child and established the trust with them, it's amazing and just mind blowing what they'd happy to do with you, and so certainly there's never a forced moment, but it's always offering variety, and then we see what works, and that's how we can tailor a menu then for that child if need be.
So what advice would you have, using that, what you've just said, for any parents that do have children on the spectrum that are fussy eaters, that are struggling at home? What are the key points and tips that you would have that you could maybe suggest to them, maybe?
Sure. So stay patient. Try textures, and try and do it when calm, no one's tired, you don't have a place to be, anywhere to be, you've got time to spend. We speak to the educators, see what's working in care, and see what your child actually enjoys, and try something different. Try a different flavor profile. Sometimes, again, as I say, it's not about the texture, it's about the taste.
Yeah.
So and if they don't want to eat a chickpea, don't. A bean might work better. So, so don't get stuck on something because you have to eat.
You have to eat, yeah.
There are other options. There's so much variety. And in Australia, oh my goodness, we are spoiled for choice.
I know.
All year round. So if it's not broccoli, that's your thing, it's not. Move on, try something else that has the same nutritional properties.
Yep.
And perhaps a different texture.
Yep. Great tips. Alrighty. Well, we published your article, and the title is Creative in the Kitchen: How Guardian Childcare and Education Chefs Are Making Healthy Food Fun for Children. Now, for someone who hasn't read the article yet, can you give us a little bit of an overview of what it's about and just tell us what inspired you to write it?
Okay, so I didn't write it, but it was written by one of my colleagues.
Yes.
What it is, is our guiding principle, and which is paramountly important to us at Guardian, is care and connection.
Mm-hmm.
The article was surrounding our new website, which is called the Learning Exchange. On that website, we have wonderful content that's actually uploaded, different experiences, new experiences are uploaded each week. And these experiences are designed to engage and delight your child, but to support you in during this time we do find ourselves in isolation, and how can we then have that continuity of learning? And that is why the article was written, to say to you guys, to say to everyone, hey, come and see what we've got. We're here to help. And these experiences invite children to be storytellers, to be outdoor explorers, to be budding scientists, aspiring chefs, active movers, young artists, curious thinkers. But when we come to aspiring chefs, because this is where you've picked up our immune-boosting smoothie that one of our chefs created.
Which is one of the 3 points, because there's 3 main tips in the article, which is great. And I think this is the first one that it mentions actually about the smoothie. Yeah, it's got a great recipe in it too.
It does. So pop over to the Learning Exchange. You do not have to be a family that attends one of the Guardian centres. This is the beautiful thing about it. It's for everyone to enjoy.
And it's free too, isn't it? It's a free.
It's free.
Oh, hallelujah.
Come and join. Yeah. In the wonder of learning, just pop over and see what is on offer. I think it's look, with the immune boosting smoothie, especially this time coming into the colder weather and dealing with viruses and uncertainty and unsureness and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Our children, especially children under 5, they still have developing immune systems, and so it is really important to support them at this time of the year, and also in the time that we're living in with the COVID-19.
Yeah.
So having a look at how we can maximize nutrition for them. There's a great recipe on that. Have a look at soups, beautiful soups that you can get. And again, you don't have to leave it all chunky. It can be a lovely, beautiful butternut soup. Chuck in some ginger and garlic, and wow, immune boosting. So have a look. There's some great ideas, and our chefs are amazing because I really take my hat off to the chefs because they're willing to share their recipes, which not everyone's willing to do.
Well, so the article, just for anyone listening and watching, does sort of list 3 sort of main tips for being creative in the kitchen, and to ensure that you got some ideas for nutritious and immune boosting meals for your children. And we'll have obviously the link in the show notes in the introduction paragraph. And the first one is a smoothie, immune boosting smoothie, and the second one is some soups, and we won't mention the third because I'll have to just read the article to see it. We don't want to give it all away. But as you just mentioned, the winter months are really great for soups, and soups being the opportunity to be able to get the veggies into the kids' bellies. You've mentioned a couple. Are there any others that you can maybe suggest that are really great for kids as well? In your experience, you've sort of found that they love?
So the butternut soup, of course, is a pumpkin soup. It's a number one. It's a chart topper, really. But also, surprisingly, a beautiful cauliflower and leek soup, delicious, and tomato soup. All those antioxidants packed in tomatoes. It's a beautiful one with a little bit of grilled cheese on the side. It's delicious. That's okay. Absolutely beautiful, So we actually do some rye, whole grain bread, top some cheese, and do like an open sandwich grill. Complement that with a beautiful tomato soup. Absolutely delicious. The children go down and visit the baker, order some sourdough bread, have it, complement that with our leek and cauliflower soup. Delicious as well. And then you get the general veggies. Look, you've got to use the vegetables in the fridge, so there's no food wastage. So pop that into a soup and get some beautiful pork bones or something like that to impart some flavour.
Yes.
Absolutely delicious. Minestrone soup. One of my absolute favourites. One of my favourites, and you'll actually be really surprised at how well children enjoy soup and how much nutrients you can pack into it.
Yes.
And it's a very affordable meal.
Yes, absolutely. And filling too, definitely.
Absolutely.
Thank you for those tips. Makes me want to be a kid again and join a service so I can just have some of those soups. Now, tell us a little bit more about this, the Guardian Learning Exchange, which, as we just said earlier, is a free resource that was put together specifically for COVID-19, but it's available for any parent. You don't have to have your children at a service.
That's right.
And so tell us a little bit more about what parents can actually access on this portal. Of course, we're going to have the link to that in the show notes, but what kinds of experiences are available on this little microsite type of thing?
That's right.
What benefits to families, especially when they're working from home, because a lot of businesses are continuing wanting their employees to work from home and that sort of stuff. So tell us more about what's available on the platform.
Well, so the Learning Exchange was created based on the Guardian curriculum. And in fact, it brings the curriculum to life. And you get to see what the children experience every day in our centres. And you can actually recreate that with your child as well. Learn alongside us is what we're saying, So there may be nature walks or a little video clip on how to use loose parts. And something that I really love is, I know you've heard the term loose parts.
Mm-hmm.
and how you can use them. So why not think about what you've got in the kitchen that is loose parts?
Yes.
So you may have strips of vegetables, crackers, a smear of Vegemite or cream cheese. With your loose parts, you can create a fun cracker face. So actually pop onto onto one of the tasks called Aspiring Chefs and have a look at one of our chefs from Sydney, Kate. She does a wonderful video on making crackers. It's very entertaining, and all the possibilities and variations that you could do to make a cracker face and enjoy it for afternoon or morning tea. Bonus. That's the added bonus. So it's things like having household items mostly, and seeing how you can use that. What we also have is we have what I thought we could also have is looking at tradition. We love our traditions and our rituals and how important they are in our everyday life. So we just recently had Anzac Day as well. So on the storyteller's side, there's a beautiful video. It's a story called Anzac Ted, and it's read by a soldier who's a mum, and she's reading it to her daughter. And once you've read that and understand what Anzac Ted went through as a teddy bear in the war, hop over to the Aspiring Chefs and create some of the wonderful Anzac cookies that's up on there. So you have an understanding of what an Anzac cookie is, and your child is understanding. So marry the two together. There are so many creative aspects that you can go in and have a look, and it will keep you busy for days. So really what it is it's helping you to continue and extend your child's learning at home while having a bit of fun as well.
Well, so I just wanted to ask now about how the learning exchange was curated. I understand, and as you mentioned before, from a pedagogy perspective, that Guardian teach in a theme and a technique called Reggio Emilia. For any parent listening and watching, this is a play-based sort of pedagogical sort of technique, I guess, as well. So I guess the Guardian Learning Exchange, was that sort of intertwined into, I guess, the platform itself, and as you were mentioning, that ensuring that parents are continuing these things at home, and as well. So just wanted to ask about that. How it was curated.
So it was curated by our amazing curriculum team. Also, contributions are made by our centre teachers, our educators, and by our families themselves as well. So getting that, it's a beautiful collaboration and a great work of sharing, and how everyone's just happy to share their work. But also, as I said to you, it is based on the Guardian curriculum principle. Children are capable, children are competent, they have choice, and looking at how they lead their learning is fantastic. So not saying to you, you will be making this cake today, but saying, have a look at some of these experiences online. This another great thing about the learning exchange that I have to mention at this stage. Look, the interest has been so great, and our understanding of the learning exchange and the content with our teams, our centre teams using it as well. What's recently been added is filters. So you can pop onto the site and have in the filter say, how much preparation time do I need for an experience? What do I need household ingredients for this experience, or do I need to pop to the shops? So having a look at those filters, you can plan and see, okay, I've got household ingredients, I have 15 minutes, let's see what pops up, and have a look with your child and say, what would you like to create today? And that's a really great facility that's been added to it recently. So it gives you choice and it gives you planning time as well. And then it comes into that choice for your child. Would they like to play with that? Would they like to learn that?
Very nice.
And it actually creates just memorable moments because it was led by your child.
Beautiful. And so the exchange itself, the platform has some immunity boosting recipes for children as well. Is there any of them that you can share with us? And I guess, and how and why is this focus replicated throughout your menu as well?
Yeah, so there's a wonderful recipe. It's actually one of a personal favourite of mine. It's a ginger chicken with coconut rice.
Oh,
I know. So,
Error.
it will be popped onto the website as well, so that we can share it with everyone. Children enjoy it; they absolutely love it. They absolutely love this recipe. It's easy to do, it's easy to follow, and excitingly, it's one of our nourish and nurture recipes. So when we were creating our baby feeding program, and we created recipes for this, we actually have a family recipe card, and on the flip side of that, it's how you can tailor this to your baby. So using the same ingredients, but taking out what is not suitable for baby, and changing the texture, and changing the textures to something that's age appropriate for them and developmentally appropriate for them. And that is one of our recipes, which I understand will be uploaded to the website for next week.
Which is wonderful. And we'll have all of those links, as you said, in the show notes too. And the other thing is too, like you mentioned about children getting involved in the kitchen as well. So what ways do you suggest parents can help get their children involved in the kitchen with cooking and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so this is possibly one of our favourite parts of our day. It's when we get to have the children involved in what we do. So as I said to you earlier, whether it's polishing up an apple and cleaning it off for you, or lining the muffin trays with the patty pans. You could get them to roll your meatballs for you. They're very good at measuring too, and measuring and mixing. And it's not perfect, so be prepared for a mess and be prepared for it not to be perfect. But that's okay, because it still tastes great. And you will see the absolute wonder and joy on the child's face. That's the payoff right there. Those are a few of the ways we involve them in cooking experience. So there's actual physical cooking where we're making muffins with them, or perhaps creating a sauce that, a bechamel sauce they didn't realize came from 3 ingredients. They could... You could ask them to do little tasks like lining the muffin trays with your patty pans. And also just recognizing that they are capable, Rachel. Our children are so capable, and they can do so much more than sometimes what I thought my children could do. You know, and I'm looking and say, wow, they blow my mind. They really do. So get them involved in any capacity. If you think it's even lining up getting the measuring bowls out, you're going shopping, creating a shopping list. And one that I absolutely love is, if you're online or having a look at a cookbook, curled up on the couch, have a look and see what appeals to them. What would they like to eat? Ask them what they'd like to eat. Because the food styling and the appearance of food really tantalizes their palates and makes them want to try something. So that's half the battle won already, if they want to try it. And if they've had the input and if they've had ownership over that, it's a wonderful way of incorporating them into not just the kitchen, but into cooking and into a food experience.
Yeah, great tips. And just, I guess in closing now, I guess, like Guardian Childcare are one of Australia's leading early education and care providers. And it's a funny industry, the early childhood education industry, given that there are just a handful of top leading national providers, being Guardian, Good Start, Best Chance, another one called KU, but there's a sort of named other services. So there are sort of a handful of those around Australia, which I think is about 15% of the whole industry. Underneath that, it's really fragmented, that there are just so many sort of smaller providers and owners that maybe only have one sort of daycare or childcare centre or something like that, overall. So it's a very interesting industry when you do study it. But in your opinion, why do you think it's so important for parents to take what is it, do you think is important for parents to take into consideration when looking into daycare, long daycare, sort of kindergarten, preschool and that sort of stuff? Like, what is important? Because it's not necessarily always just the service that is closest and most convenient, up and drop off,
Absolutely. Rachel, when looking at a service, and I speak to ours in particular because that's my home. Mm-hmm. That's where I get to practice my craft. Looking at what curriculum is extremely important, but our educators, our chefs, our centre managers teams one thing that we absolutely must have in our sector is integrity. When we work with integrity, we know that we're doing the right thing when nobody's watching. And that is really, for me as a parent, that's one of the most important things to me, is to know that my child is cared for by someone that has integrity, because I know the right thing will always be done by my child. We're looking at our wonderful curriculum. We're looking at resources. We're looking at how my child is cared for. And there are processes, there are policies, and those are things that we must do and that every service does.
Yes.
But when we look at how we nourish the children, how we nurture their interests, how we nurture their learning, how we extend their learning, and most importantly, the relationships that they have with the people that they are with during their time with us is paramount. Having we're very proud of, and we take our relationships and our connections and our care with our children and their families. It is absolutely important to us, and it is a core value of a Guardian Centre. And once we establish those connections with the families, they know that they can go off and do what they need to do during the day with absolute peace of mind,
mm-hmm.
that the right thing and the best thing is being done for their child. And as a centre chef, cook, the same thing applies to us. Knowing that we are doing the very best we can for the children with regards to nutrition, with regards to what their needs are in particular, not just the broader community, but to hone in on if you have a medical need, if you have a sensory need, if you have a religious or cultural need, that we are there to help you. And having that connection opens communication, and that is what creates these beautiful relationships within a Guardian Centre. And that would be my top tip. Make sure that there are wonderful relationships and they're beautifully formed relationships within the centre, because that is what will ensure a wonderful connection and also lovely early childhood journey. And what comes back with Guardian, what you get is a curriculum that's well thought out, that's staff that are well, they know their craft, they know what they're doing, and that is it's when you step back and you look at what's happening in the centres, and you can enjoy a moment where you can absolutely see the wonder and the joy and the delight of learning going on. It would have been the top pick for my mm-hmm. children. They're too old now.
One of our partners here at Kiddipedia is Starting Blocks. That is a division of ASEQA. For any parent listening, no childcare centre, no service here in Australia operates without their accreditation and a rating. And there's 5 different ratings, from not meeting to exceeding. Yes. And everyone that's worked in sort of the sector sort of knows that day when you've actually got someone coming around to assess your service. It's always a fun day. But for any parent that it's, looking and to make a decision where you want to take your children, it is always a really great thing to jump onto Starting Blocks, and you can access their website. Of course, we'll have a link through to that in the show notes, directly through them, and of course through Kiddipedia. But it's always good to have an understanding what rating that service actually has and where they are on that sort of 1 to 5, from not meeting to exceeding expectations as well. I think that's really important for parents to know that is available, and anyone can see that online.
And ask your centre manager to speak to that. If there is an area that perhaps needed some help, how has that centre manager or that director, how have they corrected that? What is their corrective actions, or how are they addressing that, and how are they making it better? I think that's always don't be shy to ask questions. Don't be shy to ask questions, because it might be a really, really great service. It could just be on that day that something,
of course,
went awry. And so to ask questions and ask for examples and observe. Observe what happens within the space. It gives you a very, very good indication of how what happens in a service.
And parent reviews and those types of things are always very powerful as
absolutely.
well.
That's right, word of mouth. Mm-hmm.
And just the last thing I just wanted to ask as well, so not all services provide food and food for children, but for the ones that do, you know, what questions can you suggest that parents should be asking when they are sort of making a decision about where to take their children with regards to the food that is provided?
Yes, that's a great question. So a few services don't offer food, but it's not made on site. So it's brought in by a third party. And then perhaps it's a heat and serve style. So have a look at what their philosophies are with that. Usually those services have documentation and information for families. Then have a look at services that do offer food, and their chefs, the cleanliness of the kitchen. My number one thing is, in states except New South Wales, there is the children under 5 fall under the Food Act. So there's a food safety program that we have to abide by. Ask what your last audit report looked like, because that will give you an indication of whether your child is having a safe food experience. A lot of services align with Nutrition Australia as well, which is, to have the menus assessed. And there are different online platforms in Victoria. They have particularly for early childhood, with a menu planning tool. In New South Wales, there's Feed Australia. I'm not sure if you've heard of that online menu planning tool. And that's also very handy as well. So have a look into those sorts of things. It's free for childcare for any early childhood centres. And it's just an online tool, quite easy to navigate. So if that's something that your service could do, it's also a free tool. And it was developed by the New South Wales Health Department alongside, I think it might be the University of New England. Would be
very nice.
So there are questions to ask. They are great questions to ask, especially when it comes to food services. And when you don't have a service, when there's service that doesn't serve food, look at the allowable food policies as well. What you're allowed to bring into the service. What their food policies are around heating the food that you have sent in. If they have any tips on great lunchbox ideas that's nutritious, and so there's which brings it back to, also we've got a wonderful recipe that I keep up my sleeve. It's Elaine's. It's one of our chefs here in Queensland. She does a quinoa and oats and coconut muesli bar. It is absolutely scrumptious and a wonderful, wonderful lunchbox addition.
Is that available on the Learning Exchange?
It is. It absolutely is. It's pop into Aspiring Chefs and look up for Elaine's recipe for the quinoa, oats and coconut slice. It's delicious.
Oh, wonderful. Well, for anyone watching and listening, the Guardian Learning Exchange is a free resource for parents all around Australia to use. As we've said a few times during the chat, that we'll have all of the links available, but it's definitely worth jumping on. It's got a whole list of a whole heap of different things on there, including some immunity boosting recipes and everything else. So all we can say from Kitty Pete is congratulations, Guardian. I think it's a brilliant initiative, and one I think that all parents should sort of know about and jump on and have a look. And I guess just for anyone watching, is there anything else that you're, in closing, any other key messages you wanted to summarize for anyone watching and listening today?
Look, I just say enjoy the time with your children in the kitchen. It's a wonderful experience. I've always loved it. You get some beautiful added benefits, but most of all, you get wonderful memories, and just take the time to enjoy them and enjoy their capabilities. And thank you so much for inviting us on today and for having us talk about our wonderful learning exchange, which you're all welcome to come and join us on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, Natasha. Take care, and we hope for the opportunity to chat with you again soon. All the best.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.